Hello, everybody. We're live. Welcome to A Writer's Life. This is how we do it.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to A Writer's Life. This is how we do it. And I want to put emphasis on how we do it because what you'll find tonight is that amongst this panel, we're all different in the way we approach the writing process. So our experiences, our perspectives, and the tools we use to reach our ultimate goal are all different. We have all chosen different paths to get us to this point, though many of our skill sets are different. Sometimes we overlap with these gifts of ours, but we still pretty much have some things in common, like with our writing for creativeness. And we try to educate, we entertain, we inspire, and above all, we try to motivate people. So I'd like to publicly thank each and everyone on this panel who so enthusiastically, unselfishly, and willingly said yes when I asked them to participate in this event. When I explained the why, the who and the how became simply irrelevant. There's no competition between us. We all support each other, and especially as women, because we know that's important. So one thing that we really all do have in common is that we empathize with what is going on in the world today. And we all know that there are so many people at home during this time since we're all stuck inside. And we feel that there are people who are hurting, people who are grieving, people are worried, they're stressed. And just because of the state of the world and the state of the affairs, right? So each of us knows how writing can be both healing and inspirational. So we know too that everyone, that's TOO, that everyone has a story, but not everyone's a storyteller. So we know also that with some help and some tools that you too can get your story out. So I strongly believe that we all have gifts and talents that were gifted to us, and our gift back to our creator is to share what we know and give back to others. So a team effort is always better than one. Again, to the panelists, I say, thank you guys. So the format for tonight is for each panelist to introduce themselves before their presentation and tell you a little bit about them. So I'll start. I am Michelle Spady, creative artist and host for this evening's event. Like many of us, I wear a lot of hats. Literally speaking, I do wear a lot of hats. So when I'm not being a wife and a mother, I serve as principal and creative arts director of the Artful Creative Arts Studios. I am what we call a multi-genre author. I write women's contemporary fiction and sometimes children's books, along with collaborating with others on their anthologies and projects. My body of works include 10 book projects to date, with one manuscript waiting in the wings for the right time to move on to publishing it. It's been 2.5 years, but sometimes it takes that long. It needs to simmer, it needs to marinate, and it's just not ready for publishing. So a little bit more about me is that I once contemplated getting a Master of Arts of Fine Arts, but somehow I was led in another direction. So I'm currently a second-year student at the Dallas Theological Seminary, pursuing a master's in Christian ministries with a concentration in women's studies. So I'm very passionate about writing, and my belief is, as I listen to my creativity, I am led to my creator, and the better I am able to serve. So many of our stories, with all the women on this panel, we are inspired by our life experiences. And actually, my first published fiction piece was after the death of my infant son. It was a collaboration with other parents on who were actually going through the same experience. So I too was very doubtful. I didn't think I could do it. I had never really written anything that had been publicized or in the public. But somewhere deep within, with some support, I was able to find the voice, the tone, the purpose, and it all came together. So we feel that you can do this too. And this is our desire tonight, is to help you discover your creative inner artist. And we're all artists and we all have something. So don't think that you can't do it, because we feel you can. So tonight you will hear from many points of views on the writing process, from inspiration to publishing it. So we invite you to take your shoes off, sit back, and hopefully you will find a takeaway. I will be back a little later on for my presentation to talk to you about one of my books. So right now, I'd like to turn it over to Miss Tracy Garner.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate everyone coming out today to chat with us and to just listen, to hopefully get some ideas and some wonderful instruction about how you too can write your own book and channel your thoughts and ideas into something positive and purposeful. Anyway, you know what that was supposed to say. Purposeful. Thank you. I want to share with you 4 things that have really helped me. And I'm starting off first because you really want to get some clarity about what it is you want to write. And how are you going to do that? How are you going to get all of these ideas out of your head and onto the page, make them make sense? It makes sense to you, but it doesn't make sense to anybody else. So make sure that you can organize them in a way that is good and that makes sense and that sounds really good to other people. So what I first want you to do is to remember that no idea is perfect at onset. There are many ideas that people have, and rather than knocking them down, rather than throwing them away, use them, cultivate them, grow them. I think that ideas are like children. If you tell them that they're dumb, that doesn't sound very good, that doesn't make sense, those ideas will leave and they won't return. So you respect the ideas that come, grow them, keep working on them all the time, think about them. I think about my characters in my fiction novels. I write romantic suspense, and I've written 2 nonfiction books, but I've written 14 romances. And all the ideas that came to me did not sound all that great when they first started. But I love on them and I think about them, and I write notes on napkins, on Post-it notes. I will write on the back of my hand if I have to, because I don't want to lose that idea. I believe that every one of them are important, and I want to use them later into something that I'm working on. The second thing is just to get outside of yourself. When you really think about the ideas and you're alone, writing is a very isolating thing. You should write alone for a little while, but then you need to also share and talk about your ideas with others. Now, share them with people that are positive, that are encouraging, that will help you ask questions about them and to really think about what they're going to be. They should challenge you on, well, what about this? Or why did that character experience this? Or why can't she do something? All of these are good questions that really help you think about other things, but it's hard posing questions to yourself. And yourself is often very negative sometimes about the wonderful ideas that want to come forth and want to live and breathe and take on a whole book, 400 pages, 100,000 words, 14 times for me. So get outside of yourself. I know you're brilliant all by yourself, but there are other people who want to share and want to pour into you. And also, you need feeding. When you are hungry or thirsty, you seek out something to drink or to eat. The same is true for your brain. Your brain needs input, it needs other people, it needs something to go into you and to come out. You cannot make any withdrawals if you haven't put in any deposits. You will not be able to bring forth something. When I'm feeling uncreative, or there's a drought coming with the words, I need to read. I need to read, I need to look at something. The news is my favorite source of ideas because those are all about people who just a snippet of their life has ended up on the news for some crazy and odd reason. But there's always a backstory to these people. And my writing is also partly mental health. When I see people missing, when I see injustices happen to people, I get the opportunity to take their story and write my own ending, which is often happy. However fantastical it is still a happy ending that I get to be in control of. And I get to soothe myself through the writings that I have put forth and put on paper. So feed yourself other ideas, feed yourself from other people, get outside of yourself. I let myself attend conferences and events where I am not on program. I love to do everything. I love to help. I love working behind the scenes, but I try to go to things where I'm not doing anything. And if people even look my way, I'm like, no, I'm here to learn. I'm off today. I'm just learning. I'm just getting poured into. I'm just getting filled back up. So take the time where you just go for yourself, a women's empowerment conference, a writer's conference, so many things online that you can attend in your pajamas. Isn't that great? That is so wonderful. You don't have to get dressed. You just keep your camera off and you can participate however you'd like, just to get information. Finally, I would say that it is really important to upturn every stone. If you are a journaler, which I'm not because I write so much, those are my journals. Those are my innermost feelings, the women that experience wonderful love. Those are my innermost fantasies, and I play them all out. And all the men are good looking and muscular, and that is fun, and that is interesting and wonderful to me. So in your book, you get to do whatever you want. You get to make the people however you like, as diverse or as whatever you want to do. Upturn every stone, even the painful things. That's my last point, is to really look for the things that you have angst about, that you need to process, any traumas, even the triumphs, everything. You will look through your journals and see if you can pick out things that might make a leadership book, that might make a book about dealing with grief, that might make a book about overcoming your own isolation. People are interested in the things that you write about because we're all human beings and we're all sharing, and we really have many of the similar experiences. That is really important. Let whatever you experience and feel be the fodder for your prose. That is really important. Whatever you are going through, whatever you experience, and if you don't want to, I have a chronic condition. I write about fantasy because there aren't a lot of sick people in my world, but I'm getting to a point where I know that people want to see more diverse stories, more people with differing kinds of conditions. So it's hard to embrace that, but I have tried through a couple of characters. One had a heart condition, one had vitiligo, which is a skin condition like Michael Jackson, and other people that to remember that it's not just for me, but I have a message of overcoming and get back to the heart of the message. That might be my fifth point, is to what are you trying to say? What are you trying to help people do? What are you trying to change? What are you trying to impact? When you get back to the heart of really what your core messages are, those words will really write themselves. But you also have to be transparent and willing to put some of your heart on the line and willing to share and expose yourself. Those things, upturning every stone, looking through your journals and your past experiences, feeding yourself, getting to know other people and what they have to do, getting outside yourself, going to conferences, being with other people, like-minded people, writers, positive people, not people moaning and groaning, and not people watching Maury Povich all day. And then no idea is perfect. Give it time, nurture it, grow it, speak positively about your ideas, and they will work for you. That's my time. I'm going to turn it over right now to Dionne Pierce.
Thanks, Tracy. That was
Dionne, you're on mute.
It says I'm mute. Okay, I had unmuted it. Now it just ruined everything. All right, so thanks, Tracy. I thought that was really great. And thanks to Michelle for organizing this. Hi, everyone. I'm Dionne Pierce. I'm an attorney. I write novels and short stories. I am the board secretary of the Hurston Wright Foundation, which is an organization that discovers, honors, and mentors Black writers. And I recently graduated with a Master's of Fine Arts in Writing from Bennington College. Thank you. So my topic is to MFA or not to MFA. I'm going to talk about what went into my decision to pursue an MFA, what I got out of it, and what are some alternatives to explore outside of getting an MFA. So I started thinking about getting a degree in writing about 5 years ago. I thought my writing was good. I got a lot of positive feedback from various sources, but you know, we are our harshest critics, and I felt my writing wasn't where it needed to be, and I wasn't sure how to get it to where I needed it to be. So, you know, I went back and forth about getting a degree, and I attended some open houses, and I finally decided as a first step that I would apply to a workshop. So I chose the Hurston Writers Week, and it turned out to be exactly what I needed, which was to be in the class with other writers and an acclaimed writer leading the workshops. And it was great to discover what others thought were my strengths and also areas where I could grow. And the master classes were really informative. And it was a lot of work, but it was really energizing. And so that kind of spurred my decision to pursue an MFA. I chose to do a low residency program because I'm working full-time, I'm still working full-time. So I chose a low residency program at Bennington College, which requires 5 10-day in-person residencies, and then the rest of the time for the 2 years you work one-on-one with a faculty advisor. So what I got out of it, first was my development as a writer. It generated a lot of work, and I think I really improved my writing. We had to submit between 20 and 40 pages each month of new and revised work. So it really pushed me to produce work. It also pushed me to experiment with writing. So with voice, narration, structure, language, things that I might not have pushed myself to do if I was doing it on my own. It taught me to critically analyze work. So, you know, reading a book and really thinking about how a writer did what they did, what worked, how they got it to work. And even books that I had read in the past, we had to read 50 books per term and do critical analysis of them. And so even books that I had read in the past and I'd read for pleasure, I went back and read them as, you know, part of the program, and I got to see them through a new lens. So, and one of the really big benefits was I got to work with some amazing award-winning, critically acclaimed writers who are really generous and supportive. And so, you know, when you're your harshest critic, if it's, you know, someone outside who has nothing to gain to tell you this is great or, you know, this needs some work, then that can give you the confidence about what you're putting out. The second benefit being in an MFA program is community, and that's actually one that I wasn't expecting, but it's a really great place to find people who really get your stuff, and then to form connections with people who you can exchange work with after the program, so you can continue your development as a writer and working on a specific project. I also found like the alumni network and people who are still in the program are really great about promoting other people's work. And so if you've got a book coming out, they will promote it on their platforms, they will attend your readings, they will invite you to do readings and panel discussions, and they will connect you with people in their network. So, you know, editors, agents, and other writers in your area that you may not have come across without being in the program. And then I think the final really big thing about the MFA program is the opportunity. You know, most writers don't make a living exclusively off their sales of books and royalties. And so a lot of people build a life and income around writing. So if you're thinking about, say, a career in teaching and you want to teach at the university level, a lot of programs require you to have an MFA or equivalent degree to do undergraduate or graduate level teaching. So if you're thinking about that, that's another reason to think about an MFA. It's a great addition to your resume or CV if you're interested in becoming an editor at either at a publishing house or an independent editor. It's a, you know, it's a great resume builder. And And again, with the networking, you get to connect with people in your, in your cohort in the school, but also you get to connect with their connections. But an MFA is not for everyone. It's a huge time commitment. It can be a huge financial commitment. And then you may decide just for whatever reason that it's not for you. So what are some alternatives? As I mentioned, I did the workshop before I did an MFA, and I think there are so many great workshop programs across the country. And when other countries start opening their borders again, there's other great programs outside of the country. It's a great way to get feedback on a project that you're working on, and again, discover your strengths in areas where you can improve. A second thing you can do is to form a writing group. And when you do that, I think it's really good to look for writers who have different strengths than what you have, so they can help you develop in areas like, find someone that's really good with voice, someone who's really good with language, someone who's good with pacing or plotting. And then the final thing, I think, is to read a lot. And you hear that people tell you to read a lot if you want to improve your writing. And I would add to that and say, read with a critical eye. Study how a writer handles a particular element of craft, how they're using voice, how they're managing passing of time, how they're managing a cast of characters in a scene or in a or throughout the whole book. So, but whether you decide to pursue an MFA or not, I think the one piece of advice that I want you to take away is that you should find a way to get feedback on your writing. As I said, sometimes we are our worst critics and we don't know when we're doing something really well, and we need someone else to tell us that. And then there's some areas where there's opportunity. You may be really good. You may be good at language, but you could be like off the charts with it, and someone else could help you with that. And so it's always good to get that, unbiased outside critical eye. So that's it for me. If you have any questions, please feel free to just drop them in the Q&A and we'll get to them later. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Linda.
Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Griffin, and I hope you can hear me because the skies just opened up here. There's thundering, lightning, and raining really, really hard. So if you see me jump up, you'll know why. There's lightning coming in. But hopefully you all can hear me. And thanks, as everyone said, to Michelle for orchestrating this. I am so excited to be part of this dynamic panel that she has put together. I actually focus on nonfiction. And my business, Expert Author 411, is primarily for people who want to use a book as part of their business or as part of their marketing or speaking or something like that. My view of the world is that everybody has wisdom to share that someone else can benefit by and make their life better. And so my goal is to help them get that message out into the world. So people who want to write a book that will teach someone how to do something or share lessons learned and the journey that they've gone through or their memoir or something like that, that's what I work on. So when Tracy talked about 100,000 words, the people that I work with are usually less than half of that, maybe like 40,000 words. And I know that might be intimidating to even say 40,000, but it's a lot more manageable from a nonfiction standpoint. And it's a totally different animal because we don't do characters and things like that, but we do put stories and anecdotes and case studies and things like that in our books to make them more interesting. So what I told Michelle I was going to cover tonight is a little checklist, 4 things that you should definitely consider when you're writing your book. And most of them can apply to either fiction or nonfiction, and I'll mention where one of them only applies to nonfiction. I have my notes here so I can remember all 4 of them. So the first one is to know who your ideal reader is. When people tell me, oh, anybody can read my book, That's not true, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. You have an audience that is suited for the particular book that you're writing, your particular topic. As Tracy said, she writes romance novels. Some people love romance novels, and some people say, I will never read a romance novel. Some people like Christian fiction as opposed to just general fiction. Some people like horror or something like that. So when you're writing a book, you're not writing for everyone, you're writing for a specific group of people that have similar ideas as to what you're trying to get across. So one of the first things I do is I tell people, think about who is the person that is going to benefit the most from reading your book, whether that is entertainment or teaching or inspiration, and get a picture of that person in your mind. And when you're writing your book, think about that person and think about having a conversation with them and what you would be telling them and sharing with them to make them get the most out of your book. And that will help you function and do a lot better job of writing. From a nonfiction standpoint, people don't really want to read 400-page books anymore. You know, that used to be the thing, that if you were an expert in a particular area, you'd write this big, thick book, you know, and it would thump when you put it down on the table. Well, now we're in the YouTube generation, the Instagram generation. People don't want to read big 400-page books. They will read them for fiction, but they won't read them for nonfiction. And so what we focus on is, let's do a 200-page or less book so somebody can read that in a weekend and they can get the most out of it. They can apply the lessons that you've taught them in that book, and then move on to the next thing. And they don't get distracted and put it down because they went on YouTube or Facebook or something like that. So that's the first thing, which is to figure out who the person is that is going to benefit the most from your book and write your book to that person. The second thing is narrowly focus it. If you're writing nonfiction, you want to pick, you know, we all, because we're experts in certain areas, we know lots and lots of things, and we can talk forever about our particular topic, whether that is leadership or crocheting or golfing or any kind of thing that you're an expert in. But people really want to get a solution to a specific problem. So what you want to do is you want to pick something that you can get your arms around that might not be everything you know about your topic, and then write your book about that. And the beauty of it is now you've got a whole series of books. I always tell people, don't think about this as the only book you're going to write. Think about this as the first book you're going to write, because you know so much about your subject. You can write 10 books about your subject and they can become a series. So, and then that takes the pressure off. You're not having to spend your entire life writing your one book. So that's the second thing. The third thing is to hire a professional team. And if you're self-publishing, if you get a contract with one of the big New York publishing houses, or even some of the medium print publishing houses, they will take care of the editing and the cover design and all of those things. But if you are self-publishing, which a lot of people that I work with are self-published, you don't want your book to look like you created it in your basement, okay? You want it to look professional. You want the cover to look good. You want the print and on the inside to be perfect. You don't want grammatical errors and spelling mistakes. You know, it's horrible, because what that does is it takes away from the enjoyment of the reader, because they're reading through a book and then all of a sudden they see this typo and it interrupts the process. So you want your book to be as clean and professional as possible, and it is possible if you hire experts to do those things. I know somebody else is going to talk later about editing, but the same thing goes for your cover design. Don't try to do a cover yourself in PowerPoint or on Photoshop. Don't do it, right? Hire a professional cover designer and hire someone who does book covers, because just a regular graphic artist doesn't necessarily understand what needs to go on to the cover of a book. So you want to hire somebody that has done book covers before, so they can actually do what is a good job that's going to look good when it's on Amazon or one of the onlines, or it's going to look good when somebody picks it up when you're at a face-to-face event. Same thing with the inside. The layout, which used to be called typesetting, right? Don't just do it in Word and then slap it up there, right? Hire a professional book designer who can lay out those pages with the proper margins and the proper spacing and all of that. That makes your book look professional, and it will stand beside someone that got published by a New York publishing house, and people won't be able to tell the difference. And then the fourth thing I want to talk about is get a fast start on marketing. This is what I hear all the time. Well, I don't want to market the book until after I get it finished, because people are nervous about, well, I might not finish it, right? And it's the opposite is true. I tell people, think about how the movies go, right? As soon as the movie gets optioned to start production, they start talking about it. They tell you who the director is. They tell you who the actors are. They start doing behind the scenes clips, and people are out on Instagram with posters and all kind. 2 years before the movie comes out, they're talking about the movie, and then they ramp it up the closer they get to the launch date. Then all of a sudden you see a lot of flurry of activity. Well, we should do the same thing with our books. As soon as we decide to write a book, I tell people, tell everybody, put it in your profile statement on LinkedIn or on Facebook, author of the upcoming book, right? And then whatever your title is, even if it's a working title, because again, in the movies, they use working titles. They don't always have the final title ready day one. So they'll put up a working title, and then you can share behind the scenes information about what you're doing, maybe your writing day. Even if you got a writer's block one day and you're like you're stuck, you can post that on, because people love to see the process. They don't always just want to wait until the end result. That gets them engaged, and that gets them wanting to purchase your book when it comes out. And I encourage people to start a mailing list as soon as you start your book. So those are my 4 tips. Reminder that if you have any questions, please click the Q&A button at the bottom and put your questions there, and we will get to those at the end of the session. And now I'm going to turn it over to Avril.
Hey, good evening. I'm Avril Somerville. Just like, thank you, Linda, and for all those lovely presentations that preceded me. I hope I can do this justice. Capitalizing on some of the information that was already shared. I also have about 6 tips and practices that I'd like to share with you that I believe has helped me as a writer and just in my own journey of becoming. I write from my varied experiences. I'm not just a Black woman, but I'm an immigrant. I'm from the West Indies. I came to this country when I was 10 years old. Whoop, whoop. America, my first American experiences happened in Brooklyn and in the Bronx, and I now live in the suburbs. Apart from being a writer, I'm also a high school teacher. Similar to what Dionne said earlier, I did not go through an MFA program. I happen to have an MBA, but my working as a teacher has made me a better writer. I'm always now reading, looking for the technique of a particular writer, like what turns did they take, what author does a better job of dialogue and setting and scene and all of that. So I am just pruning those experiences, and I'm really a nerd. So I come alive when I see all of that. And so here's some of my tips. My first thing is I acknowledge my gift as divine. So I know that my gift comes from a source. I know that as a created individual and being that I have a gift to pour out. So I treat my gift of writing as an indwelling, if you will. I feel like I have a responsibility then to pour it out, to bless others. I'm very purposeful in my work. I view writing as if I'm going to the well. Okay, so I'm having an at the well experience of discovery and recovery. I started writing. I'm also the author of a published nonfiction book called A Journey of Life on Purpose. And I'm also the author of the upcoming, tentatively titled, How Dare You Say Goodbye. I'm taking Linda's advice when she talks about marketing your stuff early, okay? So How Dare You Say Goodbye is the tentative title. I started writing in 2012. I know, you're like 8 years ago, right? But you know what had to happen? I had to live and go through some experiences that would make me an expert in this particular subject matter of grief. I had the misfortune of losing 3 siblings over the course of 9 days this year in April, 1 due to coronavirus, 2 due to massive brain bleeds. And I share this with you not for sympathy. I share this with you because it is by God's grace that I've been able to endure, number one, to wake up every morning and still have gratitude for the life that I do have. And interestingly enough, that title, How Dare You Say Goodbye, it seems so apropos right now with all of the grief that not just I'm going through, but the community, the collective of people who are grieving right now, who are trying to make sense of how do we deal with loss, right? So my second tip, so my first tip is acknowledge your gift as divine. Get plugged up to a source and acknowledge that it's coming from somewhere and you have a responsibility to do something with it. The second thing is mine your life. Mine the experiences of your life. I am mining everything that is happening to me, you know, the loss. They are painful. They're very painful, but they force me to, they engender me with a certain empathy for the reader and a certain sympathetic lens that I can lend as a writer. You guys talked about the necessity of writers reading, and while I completely agree, I think there are certain times we have to actually deprive ourselves of reading, deprive ourselves of social media for a week or 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be continuous, but I think sometimes when we withdraw from those sources, we can tap better into ourselves and what spirit or the creator is trying to lend to us and pour into us for our craft. So there are times when you have to be intentional in pulling away so that you can unearth some original work and not be too influenced and not suffer from comparative syndrome. My fourth tip is write the pain. The last thing I wanted to do when I lost my twin sister was write, because I already know how therapeutic writing has been for me. It is what has caused me to heal from so many other incidents in my life. I just never anticipated something of this magnitude happen in such succession. Like my life changed on March 29th, phone call after phone call, you know, trying to find where do we put this body. It's just such a myriad of experiences that no one can ever anticipate. So on the 19th of April, I saw my little journal sitting on my desk, and I said, that's the last thing I want to do, Lord. I really don't want to go there, because I already know that when I go to the page, how much I find myself and how vulnerable it is and how painful it can be, but how exhilarating it also can be. But instead of disregarding that voice, I just was led to the page and led to the well, and I wrote the pain, and I continue to write the pain. And I just ask that when you do go to the page, allow yourself to feel everything you feel, whatever that is. You know, and sometimes my husband would come down and he said, what's wrong? I was like, I just need to deal with that on the page first. I need to understand how I feel first. So allow yourself to feel what you feel by writing the pain. Write daily. I don't care how little it is. I don't care how loud it is, how much it is. It does not have to be perfect. It does not have to be a story. It might be a few lines of a poem. And do not discard any writing. It's all useful. It's all interconnected. It always comes back. And that epiphany that you had that sometimes you lose when you go to the page, it all starts to make sense. And you start to understand that the words that you're receiving, they are powerful. And there's a relationship among all of the words that you're receiving. So write daily in order to have more of those moments of clarity and epiphany. And one thing that I would strongly suggest, not everybody is able to go to therapy, afford therapy, what have you, but while you're writing, also do the deep work of self. There's a lot of me work. I noticed in the chat somebody asked, how do I write about others without like kind of outing them, without, you know, putting them on blast or, you know, rolling the bus over them, if you will, you know, with some kind of diplomacy, right? But ask yourself, what is it you're trying to write? Is it that you're trying to write about the individual or the pain or the emotions that you felt, right? The emotions that you felt, chances are they are universal. And you need not have a particular person's name. You can fictionalize the person. You can, like, people ask me, well, and how dare you say goodbye? Which character are you? I say, I'm none of them, but I'm all of them. Because you know, a little bit of my experience shows up in different people, and a little bit of my flaws show up in different people. I might take my flaw of insecurity about infidelity and put it into another character. I might take the flaw of the fear of not ever having the mother-daughter relationship that I wanted and put it into another character. Yes, that's also me, right? But who's also me is the other character that might heal from something else or be able to extend grace. So you find ways, and like I said, if you treat it as a spiritual exercise, and if you go to the well, you'll get the clarity about how to do what you need to do with your characters. So I'm remarkably excited about How Dare You Say Goodbye, because I needed that 8-year holding period. It was all purposeful, because it's now this whole full circle of my life. Having lost my twin sister, having lost my brothers, I can speak. I can ask the question, how dare you say goodbye? Because I understand the levity of that question and the audacity of life to ask me that when I'm not ready to let go. And so this for me is healing. So I write to feel the pain, and I write to heal. And that is what I hope to inspire in the writing process. And that's what I have for you. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to TC Cooper. Any subsequent questions, please put in the Q&A. We'll be sure to get to them.
Hi, everyone. I'm TC Cooper. First, thank you so much to Michelle for putting this incredible panel together. I have just been so filled with information and knowledge and just motivation to write more. That presentation we just heard was amazing, and Dionne sharing such fantastic information, and Linda giving tips that I wish I had known 4 years ago. I would not have wasted as much time and things that I saw myself doing that were successful. That was just fantastic. Tracy talking about really just the process. I mean, we have had, and Michelle, of course, kicking it out. We've had such a wonderful night, I think, so far, of talking about being a writer and feeling your emotion and getting it down and capturing the thoughts and not judging them. My part is really a technical presentation. I'm going to share with you my 5-step digital workflow and some tools. By way of background, I'm also an attorney. Dionne is an attorney here too, so you'll probably see some similarity in the precision and kind of the way that the points are laid out. But I'm a lawyer. I also write faith-based business books for leaders who are in non-religious sectors. And so that means leaders in corporate America, in government, and nonprofit. I write business lessons from a scripturally sound perspective. I also blog. So I don't write fiction. I write our business tips, but I'm a daily blogger on our website, faithfocusedflow.com, where again, I'm sharing information for leaders who are believers, who are operating and need to do well in the corporate world. So that's a little bit about my background. So I'm going to go through, and I see, I have it. I'm going to type it in the chat, and this information is also available to you. I'll send it to you, but I want to write the tools down so that you can see them as I'm talking through my process and how you can use them. So here's the very first part of my digital workflow, and that's collecting ideas in all forms: voice, images, writing, collecting them in all form in one place where you can access them from multiple devices. So Avril just shared just now, and we've also heard tonight how it's important to write your ideas down as they come, right? If you're inspired by something, maybe you're inspired by a photo that you see, you want to snap that picture on your phone. Something comes to you and you want to speak it aloud, right? So you want to perhaps capture it in audio. The tool that I use to keep all of my thoughts together, and however those thoughts come to me in a way that is accessible on, I have 2 phones, an Android and an iPhone. I can access them on both of my phones, on my desktop and on my laptop, is Evernote. So Evernote It's in the chat, evernote.com. There is a free version and there is a paid version. The paid version I think is worth it, but the free works perfectly well. Evernote allows you to capture photos, voice recordings, and whatever you type down in a particular note. Then you can have lots of different notes and you can group those notes into notebooks. So let's say you're working on various book ideas at one time, or maybe you're not sure, you have ideas on different topics. You can have notebooks and then you have individual notes that are attached. So Evernote is my favorite tool, a tool that I encourage you all to check out for capturing your thoughts whenever they hit you in whatever form, whatever inspires you, capturing it, putting it into one place so that you can use it later. Here's the second part of my workflow I want to share with you, and I have a tool, and that is flow in your voice however you feel most creative. Now, we've been talking about writing a lot tonight, and that is actually typing or handwriting, whatever it is that's come to you. But some of us flow more easily when we're speaking, right? And so I want you to know that you can dictate your thoughts and then have the thoughts that you've dictated transcribed. So now you have words from what you've spoken. So remember that. They're easy to use tools, voice memo right on your iPhone or the memo function on your Android, or ways that you can record, get out whatever it is you're feeling. Evernote has that embedded function. So get whatever it is that you're feeling out, right, using your voice. And then you can send the audio recording to, I'm going to give you a couple of places where your audio can be transcribed. And now you have written text for your words. And I think this is really important because a lot of times people in our Faith Focused Flow community will tell me they have a book in them or they really want to write a devotional, but writing is not their core strength and they get caught and they get stuck, right, with not wanting to write. Well, audio also works. So that's what I want to give you. Now, I share, once you have the audio recording, you can send it places so that it can be transcribed. I'm going to give you a free resource and I'll give you a resource that you'll have to pay for in order to do the transcriptions. The free resource is called Otter.ai and it's in the chat. And again, I can send you a list of all of these tools and a little write-up about them if you'd like that. But Otter AI is the first tool. It's free for 600 minutes a month, up to 40 minutes per session. So that means if your audio, you have to be able to curtail it down to 40 minutes in order to use that free tool, but you can use it up to 600 minutes. Another tool that has a cost, I won't say the cost here because it could change, it's called Rev, REV.com. Now I use Rev.com. I love it because there are also levels that you can have for transcription, human transcription, software transcription. Is pretty accurate. Sometimes you'll have to edit. Actually, not sometimes. You will have to edit it, but the transcriptions are pretty good and there's a cost to it. Of course, because there's a cost, it's unlimited minutes, right? Your audio file can be as long as you like it and you can use it for as many minutes as you've budgeted for. So those are the two tools. I suggest starting with Otter.ai if you've not done this before, and you can see if that meets your needs, and if not, you have another tool. So here is the third part, and it follows getting your words down onto paper. You want to put your best foot forward when you are writing. So I mentioned I'm a blogger. I don't have an editor for my blog. So the tool that I'm going to give you is my editor. And when I've written books, I've used this tool to edit the first draft of my manuscript before it goes to the editor so that the editor can actually focus on the content and not on anything else, right, that's wrong with the text. And that tool is Grammarly. So Grammarly.com is a fantastic tool. It will give, at a basic level, it will correct your grammar, and at a more advanced level, it will help make suggestions for your writing. Very, very, very useful tool. One key thing about Grammarly that I like, I think it's only in the advanced feature, is that it will point out when you're writing in past tense. Now, for me, it's easy to do that. It's easy to do it. And once you use Grammarly for a while, you'll start yourself to recognize when you are writing in the past tense, and you'll correct it yourself. And for the times that you miss, Grammarly will catch it for you and will make suggestions for how you might want to repeat the sentence. Grammarly also will help you with word choice, right? If it looks like you're using a word a lot throughout your text, it'll alert you. It'll suggest some synonyms, or you can go out and do your own research. So I find it to be a really, really helpful tip. Okay, so I'm gonna be quick. The fourth tip is don't get lost in the weeds. So I want you to check out a tool called Scrivener.com. Scrivener.com is a tool that allows you to put your ideas into a manuscript, and then you can use the outline to organize your manuscript. You can organize your ideas as the journey, the story that you're writing comes more clear to you. So if you have these snippets of brilliance, these snippets of ideas, you don't know how you want to organize them, a tool like Scrivener will help you do that. I love it. Here's the last tool. It's super fun. It's completely extra, not necessary, but it helps me feel better, especially during these times of Corona and self-isolation or self-quarantine. It's called Writer, right? Or Ohm, maybe it's Ohm Writer. What Ohm Writer does is it creates a writing environment for you. So there is a text, a place where you can type in, you can listen to sounds, soothing sounds, or you can listen to your words being typed. And it helps you just to create an oasis in your own office when you can't get away. So those are the five steps for the flow, and some tips for tools that you can use that I hope will help you get your ideas out of your head onto paper and then organized so you can get them over to your editor. And so that's it. If you have any questions about any of these tools, put them in the Q&A. We'll get to it afterwards. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to our wonderful fearless leader, Michelle Spady.
Thank you, TC. Thank you. And Tracy is gonna assist me with this presentation. So I'm gonna be talking fast because I want to share with you some things that you might wanna do to make your book a little bit more marketable. And I've chosen one of my children's books. And the title is Shoozy Q and the AB Crew in Bully on the Playground. And you'll see a shot of the front cover and the back cover of the book. And first of all, I want to give a shout out to my amazing son, who is an artist, and he is amazing because all of these drawings are his. And I also want to give a shout out because you've heard tonight about how important it is to have a good interior design. There's a graphic designer who put this book together for me, and her name is Risa Oliver. And I am truly grateful to her for doing that. So we're gonna kind of scroll through the book so I can get to just a few pages and things to show you. We talked about ways that you could come up with ideas. And for this particular project, I'm happy because it made it a family project, like book project. So I have the privilege of having this book cataloged in the Fairfax County Library, Public Library. And from this book, I put together a poem, and the poem was it took me about 20 minutes to do the poem, but of course I had to find some really vivid illustrations. And I know as an educator that teachers, or whether they're in a classroom or homeschooling, or if it's a church or camp, wherever, they're always looking for a guide or a workbook or some activities or something to help them along. So that is what I try to incorporate in this book. Not only did I tell the story, not only did I try to find some great illustrations, which wasn't very hard. I just kind of went in my son's room and saw these cute characters and selected them. So I'm lucky that I didn't have to pay an illustrator for any artwork. So we stopped here on one of these. I call this is the big shoe. So that's another reason why this book was titled Shoesy Q, because it's all about everything big in her life. And she wore big shoes, so she was bullied. And with this, I also had these lined before they were colored. I saved those so that I could have coloring pages for those. And so the activities, which this big red word list is a real big part of the added value of this particular book. So sometimes I will take into the classroom when I'm asked to speak about it or share this book, and I'll have this shoe, and it's really big, and I'll have it in black and white, and I'll let the kids list 6 positive words on the big shoe that you think could help change the bully's behavior. So when I'm focusing here, not only on the victim when someone is bullied, I'm also focusing on bystander, the upstander. And I have questions for critical thinking for the students that would help a teacher. She can also use her own, but here are, I believe there are about 6 of them. Yeah, there are 6 that I've added to the book that helps the teacher along. I also added some facts for parents and teachers, statistics about bullying that they can discuss with the kids. And there are different kinds of bullying. So these are things that I added to this particular book. And there is one of my nieces that she was bullied. So we're talking about using inspiration experiences. So I decided to reach out to some of my relatives and to bring them in on this project. My nephew, Stephen, he also, when asked would he contribute something to the book, he too doubted that he had anything to offer. And he came up with this poem, which was very, very inspirational. And because he lives in DC, and I can share this part: heart racing, short of breath, butterflies in my stomach, fearing for my life. I made it yesterday. Will I make it home tonight? No, I'm not a soldier fighting in a war. I'm a young Black male, nothing less, nothing more. Where am I running from? The safety of the school, my destination, home? I'm not in my neighborhood, so I'm all alone. What am I afraid of? Something I shouldn't be, not a monster or the cops, but rather someone just like me. And I was so impressed with that. So sometimes when you're, you can inspire other people too, to let them know you can do this. So at this point, I know my time is limited. We all have limitations. I'm going to ask Tracy to quickly flip over. I believe this is the point where we go to the PowerPoint. There was a very, I call it a big red word list, because all through the book, what I did was I highlighted some words that I thought may be challenging for certain age groups. And I was just going to show you quickly that I have created a CD. I've done a PowerPoint to help a teacher. I've created what I called it all the contents of the book, and bully are inside of a box, and it's called Bully in a Box. And I forgot the title exactly right now, but that was another little added value for the teacher to use. So with the words, we could go to the PowerPoint, Tracy, if you would flip over there. You'll see how I took the words, because kids do like animation, they like things that are moving. So I have a song too. I also took the words basically from the book, turned it into another song, poem, and I had music put to that. So that was an added value. And do we have the PowerPoint, Tracy? Quickly, the slides.
It's just not clicking the things that you wanted to click. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. So anyway, with the big red word list, I had created this, it was almost like a Jeopardy game. Oh, there it is. If we could get that into PowerPoint mode while she's doing that. And you can see how these are the words that I highlighted all throughout the story. Mm-hmm. If you start the PowerPoint, this presentation of it.
Yes, when I start the PowerPoint, it stops share. So you're just gonna have to explain what
Okay.
happened.
All right. Well, it's not that important. If you're interested, you can question in the Q&A, and I'd be happy to share that with you, and you could see how I tried to be creative with the vocabulary words. So you can do it, but just don't start thinking about the marketing process at the end of the book. You need to, as Linda and some others have said earlier, think about who your target audience is. What are some more things I can do that will make this book more valuable, and to whomever my target audience is. So I may be at my limit of time, and if not, I'll reclaim it later. Oh, now she has it. Thank you. There, you can see there are so many games I have played with certain groups with these. And so the kids would select one of the faces of either Shuzi Q or Kiana is the other with the hot red boots, and she got teased all the time about her hairstyle. So we've had fun with these, and I just wanted you to take a look at how you can be somewhat creative. And that's all for that part. And I'm now gonna turn it over to, I believe, Chiquita is next. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We have had some wonderful speakers earlier today, and on to more. We have more for you. But my name is Chiquita Lee. I'm a social media coach, and I am an author of 5 books. 5 books. And let me tell you, I wouldn't have gotten a book if it had not been for social media. So that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about. As the ladies have shared before, you have got to make sure that you are putting yourself out there and making your presence known. So if I was not on social media, I would not have had the opportunity to be a part of my first book, and probably wouldn't have had the other 4 after that. But because that opportunity came up was because I was on social media. But because I was helping out, because I was looking at things, because I was supporting other authors, I knew, listen, I've been actually writing since the first Dynasty came out in like 1988. Me and a friend would write things, and we would tell ABC, we would talk about writing the ABC and letting them know, you know. So I've been writing for a while, but I've always kept it, you know, to myself, you know, journals, blogging, those type of things. But when the opportunity came available, I decided to jump on it. And it was only because of social media. So like Linda said, do not wait until the end to be like, boom, I got my book. And everybody's gonna be like, wait a minute. We didn't even know you were author. We didn't even know you were writing. So you have to start the process of putting yourself out there. So what I would say to you is pick a platform that you're going to be on. And most people pick Facebook, which is totally fine. The reason why it's fine is because you have so many friends and family, right? So let them know about what you're doing, because your friends and your family are usually your biggest audience that can be able to share or point you in the direction of other people. Plus, by being on Facebook, if you are looking for someone to edit your stuff for you, if you're looking for someone to design your stuff for you, you may be able to just put a post up there and say, I need an editor, I need someone to design my book cover, I need this, I need that. So they already know, okay, my cousin is doing this or my friend is doing that. So let me share with them what I know so that they can be able to get some help for what they need. So number 1, pick a platform, right? Whether it be Facebook or any other platform is your choice. I think Facebook is a great platform to be on to start out with. And remember, change your bio. Don't say I'm an aspiring author, right? Because you've already started it, okay? So you're not aspiring anymore. You are an author. You just don't have all the words out there just yet. And you may not have the title, which is totally fine, but you can just say that I am an author. So whether you're author of nonfiction, fiction, whatever it may be, you can put, you know, the details, but just say I am an author. Because again, when people look you up on social media, what are they finding? Like, you're an author, but you don't have nothing up here about you being an author. You don't have nothing written about you writing, I'm on my process, I'm growing. You have none of that information. So you want to make sure that you put it out there, right? Make sure that you dedicate yourself to doing it. The reason why is when you say that you're going to do something, you may be able to have someone that holds you accountable. Somebody that saw your post that can come back and say, so how's it going? And you'd be like, girl, I ain't writing no more. They'll ask you why, what made you stop? So you want to be able to share your journey along the way. Like they said before, like the ladies have pointed out before, if you are out there and you're putting yourself out there and you're saying, you know what, I'm struggling today, you can look at so many things that's going on in the world and get that inspiration. Like the lady said, write it all down, right? It's going to go into something at some point in time. It may not be your current book. It could be other books that you thought of like, oh, I know the perfect book, but keep it out there, right? And put it out there on social media. The third thing that I would say is be yourself, right? You don't want to be like any other author. You want to be yourself. Your writing style, your genre that you decide has to be upon yourself. So make sure you figure that out. If you haven't figured that out, I mean, you probably should figure that out, which part of your writing journey you're going to be on, which genre you're going to write in. If you decide to post it out there, you can, but if you switch a lot, you don't have to post it out there. But do and be yourself when it comes to social media, because that is how you get helpful friends that can help you. You never know when you're sharing things about yourself, how you inspired someone else, and you guys can be partners on this writing journey. Social media is a beautiful thing, but you have to actually put yourself out there, and it helps you to build your community. Because like I said, you never know how you've inspired somebody who say, you know what, I've been wanting to write a book for umpteen years. And that's happened to me. Once I posted the first time about writing the book, I had so many people reach out to me and ask me 50 questions. I'm like, listen, I'm just now getting into this whole book writing thing. Let me, do it, and I'll let you know how it's going. But they held me accountable, right? Visuals mean a lot. One of the best things that you can do as you're moving through your social media journey, your writing journey, and putting it out there is ask questions, ask for help. If you have a thought of how you want your book cover, but you have a couple of thoughts for book covers, put them out there. Get your audience engaged and built up on what your book could be about or what cover. I was on a social media platform and there was someone who actually asked for ideas, and the ideas that he had, once he decided to go with a particular idea, he put that in the book and he noted who it was. So that person was excited to be a part of the book just for giving an idea. So it's very helpful for you to do that. So one of the other things that you want to do is you want to make sure that you're helping to build your community and making sure that you're being seen, okay? So Facebook is the place for you to be. Whether you decide to go on Instagram or whether you decide to go on LinkedIn, it's totally your choice. But the thing is to get out there on social media. Do not wait until your book is done and be like, ta-da, here is my book. You want people to help you along the way. You don't want to spring it on them. You want them to be excited for you and with you and go along the journey with you. So you can start wherever you are and putting it out there. So if you are an author and you guys are writing, do not wait until you're almost finished to put it out there. You want to start now. You want to put it out there. You want to make sure people see I am an author and they can be able to walk along the journey with you. So the last thing that I will say is continue to keep writing. As the ladies have mentioned, these are some great things. I have a lot of the tools that TC talked about. Everything that the ladies have told you thus far is something for you to keep in mind. And I hope and I pray that you guys will get some great information from what has been shared. If you guys have any type of questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and you can put it in the Q&A section. And then I'm going to turn it over to Miss Ty.
Hello everyone. I am Taora Moody, and I'm usually just known as Ty. I am an author and a literary entrepreneur, and if you're wondering what that is, I probably have spent probably 20 plus years now working with authors. I started building websites at one time, and then I was into helping authors be promoted with blog tours. And now I'm more focused because I'm an author myself. You kind of have to focus and um, do your writing and also help out others. So now I mostly focus on book cover design as well as book formatting. Um, so I am not an editor, but I have worked with a lot of editors. I'm actually working on book 10 for my fiction, and I also have worked with a couple of anthologies, and I have, I think, two nonfiction books out. So I wanted to share with you a couple of things about editing. And first and foremost, I want to talk about once you get to that point where you have a clean, where you have a manuscript, you definitely, when you approach an editor, you don't want it to be your first draft. So you probably, with that first chapter, you spend a lot of time getting that first chapter right. And then it's about just putting everything on paper. So I would say definitely put it to the side for a while. It may be a few weeks, a few months, hopefully not too long. You don't want to drop the momentum, but put it to the side and then pick it back up and really go back and read through it, read aloud, and try to pick up on things that maybe would make it a cleaner manuscript. And the reason why I say that is you'll save yourself some time, maybe a little bit of money, if you make sure you don't send to the editor your first draft, because maybe the editor may end up feeling like they have to ghostwrite or they have to really mess with your voice a little bit too much. So really take the time to make sure you finalize your manuscript. So that's my first point. The second point I wanted to talk about was, well, how do you find an editor? And I think Chiquita, she talked about using social media. That's a great place to just put out the word for people to say, hey, I need an editor. But one of the things you want to do, because there's so many people that edit, you want to find the person that's right for you. So I would suggest asking people for a sample edit. And most good editors, they will give you maybe a page or two. They won't do a whole chapter, but they'll give you an example of how they would edit your manuscript. And most of the time, it's going to be in a Word document. If you're familiar with Word, it has a tracking feature in it. And some editors like to use Google Docs. So if you're a Google person like myself, that also has a tracking feature in it too. And that tracking allows for the editor to leave you comments about certain parts of your manuscript. You'll also see where they may have removed some words, they may have made suggestions about your sentence structure. So that's something, if you're not familiar with that sample, that you'll see and kind of understand where you can go. And if this editor even is someone that you can work well with. Um, and before I jump into the types of editing, I want to talk about self-editing. And I don't want you to take it as, oh, if I self-edit, I'm good to go. Going back to having that clean manuscript, there's just a couple of things to look for. And some of the ladies mentioned them earlier. I think TC talked about Grammarly, which I was not aware of, so I might have to use that myself. But just when you're going back through your manuscript, look at whether you're staying in the past tense. If you're not, you want to fix that. If you started writing a fiction book in the first person and then you suddenly went to the third person, those are things that an editor would catch, but you can catch before you send it to the editor. Some other things you might have when you're writing, when you read it aloud, is sometimes you miss words. Like I will write and forget to put the word the. THE is a little word. It makes the sentence flow so much better. But when you go back and read your work and you put it in yourself, that's another way to make sure that the flow is a clean flow for the editor to work with. So now I'm going to jump into the types of editing. And there's really three types of editing. The first one is content editing. And that's probably going to be the most expensive editing because that's where the editor really jumps into your work. They look at the flow of it. They look at if things make sense, if you might need to move a chapter around. Sometimes they may suggest you delete something. And writers don't like to delete things. But even if they do, Sometimes maybe that passage they ask you to remove is for something else. So I always keep all my deleted pieces in a little pile on my computer and say, hey, that's for another book or for another character. So the content editing is probably the most in-depth part, and it may require you to go back and do a lot of rewriting or maybe just a little bit of rewriting. Sometimes if you're, and I'm mostly a fiction author, so I am good with, I'll start writing a book and somewhere along the line, the supporting character, I just don't like their name anymore. So I'll change their name midway in, and then the editor will later say, who's this person and who's this person? I said, oh, it's the same person, I just changed their name. So it's during that content editing part, they'll try to keep you consistent, making sure that things that you said at the beginning, that you follow through with it by the time you get to the end. So the second type of editing is copy editing. And when you get pretty good at doing a clean manuscript, sometimes you can skip the content editing part. I'm kind of at that, which is a good place because I've had a lot of editors, and when you listen to your editors and you start a new manuscript, you can kind of avoid the content editing part and do the copy editing, which is basically the grammar. They're looking at the punctuation. Are you using too many commas? Are you using commas in the right place? So that's kind of the copy editing part. The third type of editing, and that's the one sometimes authors will skip. I suggest you don't. And in some cases, you may not want to work with the same editor for this. You may want to do it with another person to get a new set of eyes, and that's proofreading. Proofreading is kind of that final stage. It might usually happen either before your manuscript is formatted or sometimes after it's formatted. You just want that final set of eyes to look at your manuscript before it's publishing. If you don't want to hire a proofreader, some authors get beta readers. Beta readers will tell you things about your story, and they definitely will pick up on errors, especially if you get with those avid readers. So I would definitely say in the three types of editing, content editing, copy editing, and proofreading, if you can kind of keep those in mind. And I also want you to plan for editing to, it's not going to be a quick process, or it shouldn't be a quick process. I always tell authors that I work with, and I work with a lot of first-time authors, to plan at least 2 to 3 months, because things happen. You have a day job, you have kids, you may have grandchildren, and that time that you need to spend on rewriting and getting back with your editor, you need that time to really focus on making sure you are putting out the best final version of your book. So with that, I would say for those of you who are finishing up a manuscript, congratulations. And if you have any questions about editing or anything that any of the previous presenters have talked about, make sure you add your questions in the Q&A. And I think I'm going to turn it back over to Michelle, our great and wonderful host. And we're looking forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Ty. Thank you, everybody. And at this time, we're going to entertain questions that are in the Q&A, and it's not too late if you have one. We welcome you to type your question in. So we have a Michelle Brown too that I really want to shout out and say thank you to for being our assistant production, which way did it go? Production assistant or whatever. She's been on the ball, as well as TC. I do extend a great thank you to you for getting this all set up for us. And thank you, Michelle, for being it and run a good close second. Okay, so we have a few questions we can take. Is it Michelle or?
We have a question in the Q&A that I can throw out, and it said, probably for the social media, could you please provide more details on quick start marketing and creating mailing lists? Maybe Chiquita.
Okay, so for social media, I'll talk about social media, and then I'll let Linda talk about the email list, because that's what she talked about. So for social media, Facebook would be the quickest place for you to put yourself out there, okay? So in the bio section, make sure you go in there and change your bio, because you could put up there what you do, you know, right above where you're located, right? So you could put up there you're an author. So you're an author of, you know, an upcoming book or whatever you want, but make sure you change that bio. If you are on Instagram, whatever platform that you're on, you could put it up there. Give a little bit more of details, right? After you put it in your bio, do a specific post, right? And say, I use this word all the time. I probably need to find other words. I'm so excited, right? But I think maybe everything makes me happy. So you can say, I'm so excited, I'm so happy, you know, whatever it is, but get people energized so that when they read that post that you're finally going to be an author, or you're, you know, I always say my lifelong dream, but you know, it really don't be a lifelong dream, but it'd be like a dream that has come true. So you could be able to say that, but put some energy into it, get people excited, you know, get a picture of yourself smiling, and just go into detail. Because what people are going to do is they're going to congratulate you. They're going to ask you questions and give you an opportunity to start talking about it. So you want to put it on any and all social media platforms that you're on, so that you can get people going, get people excited. And then that opens up the door for you to connect with other people, okay? Other authors, join other author groups if you want to, and just put yourself out there as you're starting to write. And then on days when you want to share thoughts and ideas, put it out there, like, you know, today I'm really struggling. I'm thinking about doing this, but what do you guys think about that? You can just ask simple questions, but it's just to engage your audience, to let them know that you are on this journey and you're just still moving forward with it. So Linda, you can talk about the email list.
Sure. Yeah. Really, just to tag on to what Chiquita was saying, when you're posting those things on social media, what I recommend is that you end that post with, and if you want to be the first to know when the book comes out, click here to sign up for my mailing list. Now, there's many email marketing things, like everybody has heard of Constant Contact, but there's MailChimp and MailerLite. Both of those have free versions up to 2,000 names, and it's very easy to sign up. And basically, it gives you a link then that people can go and put their name and their email address in. So that way, you're starting to build a list of people that are waiting for your book to come out. And I had a client, Carla Maxwell Ray, her book was called 5 Pillars of a First Class Life. And every Friday, she would post a little thing about, here's a first class tip, right? And she would post that, and at the end of that, it might be a quote from the book. It might be just a quotation that she liked. She put cardinals in her book because she said that's the symbol of a first class life. She put a picture of a cardinal, and then she put a little comment about that. And then after each one, hey, sign up for my mailing list if you want to be the first to know when the book comes out. And she had probably 50 people by the time her book came out that were already on her mailing list and already waiting for that book to come out and ready to purchase.
I would just add, if I could. Go ahead, TC.
I'll just add one thing. And so that's such great information that Linda gave about writing and building your list. And once you build your list that way, you also have a group of people who could be beta readers. And so I think Ty mentioned that's a way to get feedback on your ideas. So I would suggest that you can get readers to be a part of the writing process, and then they will be a part of your launch team as well.
They'll help post on your behalf. Yes, they help post on your behalf. And if you have a blog, that's also another place to curate an email list if you already have a blog.
I was just going to say, don't wait until you're, published, as everyone has said, to start your mailing list. When I started, I put all my family. I got the family reunion master list for my auntie. I put everybody on there. And then when I got real people, I was like, y'all don't buy no books, so I'm taking all of y'all off, and then I'm going to get some real fans, and all of them got put on there because postage was getting very expensive, and this was before social media. The other thing I would just say is that remember to build your own list, use an Excel spreadsheet, have a backup. when Mr. Zuckerberg and everybody gets mad and they pick up their marbles and go home, you will not have any access to anyone. And they're, so they, at a whim, they could just shut the whole thing down and take all his Facebook money and all that money you paid to boost a post with him. And so you really want to have a list of your own, because you could lose it and it could go away.
Okay, and I know we're winding it down here, but let's see if we can at least just take a couple more. Does a book have to have character names? I started writing a book by mistake, fun writing segments that turned into a story, laugh out loud. However, I did not name any of my characters. And now that I have realized that I actually have a book and not just fun short stories, I feel I need to go back and make up names. As Charlotte stated, I also do not want to out anyone, which is why I fear to even publish my book. Sorry for such a long question. So the question, I guess, to go back through it is, does the book have to have character names? Character names. What kind of story? Are we talking fiction, nonfiction? If leadership type books, or if it's definitely fiction, I would say you definitely have to have some character names.
I think for both, because you've got it straight in your head who everyone is, but your reader has no idea who you're talking about. So you can make composites of characters. You can make up names, but it's a way to help guide your reader. So definitely, I'd say include character names.
And like Ty said too, along the way, because I've done this many times, one name, you start out with one name and that character seems to just take a life of its own as you continue to write. And you just change the name in the middle of it or at the end sometimes, So there are many different ways to name the characters. Hi, did you want to add to that before we?
Yes, and I was going to say character names are very important, especially if you realize your book could be a series. People really start to relate to that character's name. Sometimes they may not remember the title of a book, but they'll remember the character's name. So definitely think about the characters. I actually use online, there's a lot of random name generators. Sometimes you can just use that and see what comes up, what might work for you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll wrap it up right after this one. It's my love story, how I got out of a narcissistic situation. Started out as a journal and realized that it was becoming a book. Just never added a name to any character, just him and her. And I'm not seeing really the question part of it. Okay,
she was just giving clarification.
Asking about the character. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Now's a good time to
I'm sorry.
names for them. I was just saying now's a good time to consider the names that you might want to use without putting your name out there.
Okay.
And the last question we can answer is that I just typed in the Q&A just to give some ideas, was just about if you have stuff all over the place and it's kind of a mess, what should you do? I will just say that, all of us have probably had things, stops and starts and things in different places. One of the things I love that I don't think TC mentioned was Google Docs. You can also have, Google Docs has a microphone that you can also use your voice to dictate, and it's free. You just have to have a Gmail account, which is free, and a Gmail email address. So that's one of the ways that you could, this person that asked the question said that cut and paste or copy and paste wasn't available to them. And so what you'll be able to do is take the pieces that you have, they're printed out, and just read those to the Google and be able to get them down faster and get them on paper. And then just secondly, sometimes a timeline really helps. I am a pantser. For those of you who don't know, pantser versus plotter. People who write by the seat of their pants and don't use outlines. Plotters really have, outlines and lists and things like that. And so really know who you are will help you go faster. I don't spend a lot of time trying to put my pants, trying to take off my pants because I enjoy being a pantser. So I
I
just
like being
put
a
them
pantser.
on, and trying to stuff myself basically into a plotter box is what I'm saying. So by knowing that, I can just go for it. But if you are a plotter, then do that and just, embrace whichever one you are. And the only reason I mention that is because at about page 350, 300, I will do a timeline. So I do adopt some plotter tendencies, but that's just to help me make sure that I'm in chronological order with the happenings of the events in the book and the story, to make sure that if I started in the fall, it's eventually winter and not back to summer. And just little things like that. So if you want to use a timeline to kind of order your story, I think that would really help you get it down and get it done, and also help you put all those pieces together just to try to make some sense of it.
I want to add one more tool to Tracy about getting ideas down when you can't copy and paste. If you have things that are handwritten, you can also take a photo of that. There are scanning tools that you can use that can help you convert a photo or an image or a scanned document into editable text. So you can email me. I put my email in there. I have lots of tools, but you can also Google that, scan to text. That also may help you get some ideas actually into an editable form.
All right. We certainly hope that you have found at least one little tidbit, and we hope that we have inspired you in some kind of way to just pick up that, if you're like me, I like pen and paper still, even though I do use the laptop and the phone. But I've picked up so many tools and some good stuff tonight that I need to follow through myself. So on behalf of the panel, I surely hope that you have been inspired and you will just succeed on your writing journey. And we plan to get together and do this again, and maybe from another perspective, and we might be able to get more into a workshop type situation and offer you more details. And again, I'd like to thank the panelists and all of you for attending. So thank you for joining us. This concludes our event. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, everyone. God bless.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.